we're going to do this in the next segment. What happened on college campuses as a result of the election? Because it tells us where, as a society, we're going with our Bill of Rights, and in particular, freedom of speech. We're at SteelOnSteel.com. I'm John Leffler. The program is Steel on Steel. Okay, I'm going to tell you something very, very important, so pay attention. That's what I was going to tell you. Because in the course of newscasting, things take on a life of their own and shift and go in a different direction. Welcome back to Steel on Steel. John Leffler here with you. I was originally going to talk about an article that I thought piqued my interest. You know, we're covering the issue of free speech on college campuses and the incredibly one-sided diet that college students receive of a worldview philosophy, largely from the radical progressive left, that is fed to them every single day. And they rarely ever hear countering arguments to it. So that's shaping their worldview. And the article was entitled, "Universities Work to Purge Male Students of Their Toxic Masculinity." Now, bear in mind, I personally myself don't like an overzealous quantity of testosterone in certain males. I don't like a lot of locker room talk. I really have never found it anything but disgusting. There's always the football player, duh, football, and that's about all they can do, that type of thing. However, there's been a long-standing effort on the part of feminist groups to purge men of their masculinity on the idea that this is the cause of all of the world's problems. And the article was written by William Nardi. He's been on the program before. He's a sophomore student at Roger Williams University. He runs a site called the rabblerouser.org. Now, I was going to do that until just before we get on the air, because what we usually do is do a quick summary while you're listening to station break stuff of what we're going to talk about, so we understand which direction the conversation will go. Based on the reactions of what happened on college campuses this week to the election on Tuesday of Donald Trump as the next president of the United States and the loss of Hillary Clinton in that same campaign, is really indicative of why free speech is in trouble on college campuses and why educating students, high school students, college students, millennials in true history and other narratives that actually more correctly represent the real world out there is critically important. It's job one for all of us right now, or we're going to be in trouble. But we need to look at what went on this week. So William Nardi is joining me. Bill, I think it's important to talk about both the purging of toxic masculinity, and then let's drag that over to what happened not only on your campus, but you were inundated with phone calls from your contacts on other college campuses around the country describing what was going on.
And I think the first thing I just want to put out there is that really the dramatic result and the dramatic reaction to the Trump victory is a consequence of the bubble that college campuses have become. They're literally, students today, they're in their own world on a college campus. And when this happened, it brought them back into reality in the harshest way possible. And it's resulted in some of the craziest stuff that I've ever seen. Even on my own campus, we have vandalism everywhere. We have students threatening to commit suicide. We have safe spaces going up everywhere. And this isn't even the worst of it. Some other places are going nuts, canceling classes, and I've never seen anything like this. People were complaining when they said that Trump wouldn't accept if Hillary Clinton won, and here they are right now in this one enormous childish backlash to the legitimacy of his presidency.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. And we're reaching across the years here because I'm a baby boomer and you're a millennial.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're a single millennial. Does that make you a millennium? You know, we've been through traumatic stuff in this country before. I remember Watergate and all of the other nonsense. Why is this affecting them? Why are they acting like the world is coming to an end tomorrow? That's really hard for me to grapple with.
So, yeah, I don't know. Actually, the other day I was with a guy around your age who really isn't in touch with what's going on college campuses, and I'd say you're pretty far in touch with what you do with your show, John. But he wasn't even aware of the ideological divide between the campus. And what we're finding out right now is that as people are becoming aware of it, they're just not even able to comprehend the situation and how it's developed to the point that it has, which honestly, even back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s, it's never been this bad. So a perfect example I can give you is just tying it back into that article that you mentioned earlier in the video. One of the biggest reasons why these universities are trying to stomp out so-called toxic masculinity is because they're trying to get rid of any reference during a child's development that could lead them to believe that their gender identity, as the liberals call it, matches up with their biological identity. So, for instance, in one of the videos I saw when I was putting together this article, a speaker said that the three most dangerous words a child can hear is to be a man. That's really what hit it home for me. To be a man is to accept your responsibility and your maturity. And when the father says that to his son, he's guiding him into adulthood.
And to manhood, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, equivalence to that would be man up, get a pair.
Yeah, but it wasn't even just that. It was simply be a man. I mean, you can draw the line when you say, grow a pair or something like that, but being a man is it's an essential thing in the development of a young boy to become an adult male. And our society has become so diluted in their false realities that they just can't bear hearing anything that could force them back into the truth, and that's that there are only two sexes, and that's male and female. So all these adults around us, especially not just on my university, but all around the country, they've placated to them for so long. And I honestly think that it's because we're compassionate human beings. We don't want others to hurt themselves, and we've tried to make qualifiers so that reality can exist with this imaginary world that they carry in their heads, but it's just impossible. We're not helping them, and it's not fixing the problem. It's only making it worse and further encouraging it. And it's gotten to the point now where safe spaces are everywhere. People can say these things, and they can get away with it. They can get away with thinking these things that are completely different from reality, and they're supported by their institutions. They're supported by their professors. And if anyone says anything to the contrary, they're persecuted for it, or in some cases prosecuted. They're forced to take racial sensitivity, diversity sensitivity classes, and they're told that all of their beliefs are wrong. It's literally indoctrination, and there's no other word for it besides what's going on right now. And the result has been a place on all college campuses that's so cushioned. It's literally like we're throwing students into a padded room that you would send a person for solitary confinement so that they can live in their own imagination without looking outside of themselves.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Does that come about as, number one, what they get in grade school and high school, or number two, what they're getting there on campus, or number three, the narrative of the particular media, social or mainline media that they watch, or maybe all of the above? How do they get to this point? Because I've had other college professors on that would probably share our views, and he said, when I begin to expound these views, it's like deer in the headlights for his freshman students. They have never heard another narrative, William.
I know. So let's try to unpack that into a couple different parts. So the first part is that I'll say from my own experiences, I was in high school 2 years ago. And in my high school, there were liberal undertones, absolutely, in all of my classes. I remember my professor saying, socialism is such a great idea in theory, but it wouldn't work if it was actually tried, which is completely ridiculous. Socialism is evil. It's completely contrary to the values that this country has been founded on. I have no idea why any high school teacher or any professor would express those kind of opinions in a public setting, especially with children so young that they're this impressionable. I still have classmates from high school that I keep in contact with that haven't gone on to college, or they're not political science majors, and they have absorbed and integrated these beliefs into who they are because it was hit at them at such a young age. So I think high school is definitely where it begins with the liberal undertones. I'll say that. And I think, at least from my experience, it wasn't totally overt because of the taboo nature of talking about politics in high school. But I've seen stories across the country of high schools that do projects in conjunction with colleges, visiting professors, just anyone like that, that are crossing between the two. And because of that, all of this enormous liberal academia is starting to seep into the public education system even more. So that's how I believe the process first begins. But really, it's because you have that predisposition to these liberal undertones that are around you, especially if your parents aren't that political and they're not saying anything contrary to what you're being told in school. As soon as you get to college, you begin to start hearing the word diversity. You begin to start hearing about all these programs, and it starts on freshman orientation day. I remember it too. I didn't even know what a transgender was or what a gender identity was when I came to college. All of this stuff, I could have a degree in gender and sexuality studies just because I've been inundated with it for so long, and not even for my work. And it's so seamless, John. It's so seamless how all of these things have crept into our society. I'm now hearing people use the word diversity for different types of condiments at a salad bar. People are this language is just becoming an integral part of our language altogether. And it's what's growing and it's what's expanding upon. And of course, it's starting at the colleges. It's starting with the liberal academia. That's how they're influencing the young people. But if they're not getting any contrary opinion, then that's what they believe. And suddenly, anything besides what they've heard is wrong. The Republicans are racist. The conservatives are wrong. They're always out to get someone. And it's so disgusting. I woke up this morning, and I couldn't have been happier that for the first time since 1928, we have a Republican majority in Congress and in the presidency. And for the most part, I'd say our Supreme Court is safe. But I can't even enjoy that because as I was walking through my campus this morning, people were bawling their eyes out. They were actually crying. There were people who would give me dirty looks, and I'm hearing this from my friends all around the country that I've met through doing this kind of work, that there's protests going on, that there's people who are not showing up to class. My first class of the day, half the class didn't even show up. People are so obsessed with what's going on because they've been put into this bubble and they've been infantilized to the point where colleges are literally crippling students' abilities to deal with reality. And anyone who isn't aware of what's going on, to anyone who hasn't heard about how colleges have progressed to this point, this might sound drastic, but it's really not. And if you go Fox News or even on any of the websites that I write for too, you'll see video footage of what's going on. And we have footage of these protests, of this vandalism that's going to be coming up within the next day and a half that we're processing. And like I told you, I got 40 phone calls this morning alone of my peers that were telling me, you've got to do something about this because I can't stand to be on a campus that's this liberal and that's been agitated with this election to the point where it's hostile. I've heard of threats coming in against my friends, other students, people literally just going up to them and yelling at them, swearing at them between classes.
Let's do a break. William Nardi at the rabblerouser.org. He also writes for a site such as thecollegefix.org. We'll be back. We're at steelonsteel.com.